I'm glad you guys are able to join us today. We have Matthew here. He is one of our support leads and super talented at solving complex problems when it comes to Mylio. So after a short, quick intro that I'm going to do, he's going to walk through some of the common problems that he's encountered through support and how to fix them and how to, keep going without having to wait for a reply back from our support team. So I'm going to jump really quick into my Mylio here. And for those of you who are new to our system, there's a couple of things that you're going to want to pay attention to know what's going on with Mylio and with your computer. So the first one is going to be to go over to the dashboard and into devices. And this is going to list all of the different devices you have attached to your Mylio Photos account. So you can see I have some devices that are online, some that are not, and you'll notice that there's some iconography underneath each one of these items. If you're curious about what those mean, there's a little help button here, and this tells you what's in sync, what's needing images, what's sending images, what's offline and needs to sync, or offline and in sync. So that's one of the first places I go to see what the status is of my library. Another great place to check is the sync panel. And that, if you open up the right panel on the side, go to the sync tab. If you don't see all of those options, you can expand the devices section there. And then take a look. This gives you a little bit more granular view of what's going on with your system. So I can see that my Amazon Drive needs a preview. I can see that my Drobo also needs a preview. My iPad hasn't been connected, so it needs a few thumbnails and a few previews. I have my iPad right next to me, actually, so I can go ahead and turn that on, open up Mylio, and you'll see fairly quickly, there it goes. It just jumped into online right there, and it is sending and receiving and those numbers are going to start dropping very rapidly for thumbnails, a little bit longer for previews, and I can see in real time as things are getting synced up, which is pretty cool. So those are the two places that if you're not sure why pictures aren't showing up on one device or another, you can see at a glance what devices need what. And one thing to keep in mind is with mobile devices, you have to have them on and with Mylio Photos running in the foreground. If you close the app, it stops syncing. So you want to make sure it stays on for that sync to complete, and then you'll be good to go. So that's pretty much all I wanted to share there. One other quick thing, if you are curious about learning more about the sync panel, we've got a great diagram here in the user manual, and it's in the chapter called Understanding the Sync Panel, underneath Keeping Your Library in Sync. And I have it lined out here with definitions for everything that's going on in the sync panel. And if you click on the picture, it makes it bigger so you can actually see which numbers are attached to all these little areas, and it'll help you navigate that sync panel a little bit better. Any questions about that before I hand it over the floor? All right. Well, I want to welcome you, Matthew. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you've learned, some of the things that you've encountered, and how we can easily fix them on our own. So the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to just share my screen here. All right. So I went through all of the tickets that I was assigned and kind of answered, as well as did some running of some reports in history to kind of get an idea of when someone has a syncing problem, what troubleshooting steps do we go through, and how do we use the tools that we have in Mylio, like the dashboard and the sync panel, to try and figure out where these media are, what needs to happen, or what's kind of the story with what needs to finish syncing. So I've come up with a list here that we'll kind of just run through, and I'll kind of show you how some of this happens or what we can do to try and find it. So Angela kind of already talked about the sync panel. We have status here for all of our different devices to kind of help figure out what's going on. One of the ways that I like to break down the syncing is, does a device have or not have a media? And does it want or doesn't want? So we can use the colors, either black, green, or orange, to figure out those two sets of questions. So green, whether it's solid green or squiggly green, means it has it, and black or orange mean it doesn't have it. So we can kind of go from there. In the sample that I have set up here, we can see that there are some media that kind of needs to sync to every device. So we can kind of go through all the different settings that we have available. Within the sync panel, we have quick access to something like the device settings. If you click on the icon for the device, you're given this device settings where you can update a device's sync policy. Or there's also a show media waiting to sync button. So we have those options available right in the sync panel. And I do want to specify currently you do have to click on the icon. If you click on the name or you click on any of the other parts of the window, you do get a different message. So that is a little tip. Anything that is available here, of course, is available in the dashboard. In the devices view, you would have the same show files to sync, as well as you can adjust the sync policy for any devices that you need to. So then we'll just jump into the problems that I see. So the number one problem that I see on why devices don't sync is because they're low on storage. This can be a phone that became too full. I don't know, OneDrive dumped a bunch of files and filled up your computer, so it's actually something completely outside of Mylio. And this would, so if a computer is too full to sync, any attached USB drives will also not sync. So if you have a vault connected to your computer and it doesn't seem to be syncing, the computer may actually be too full to act as the host. So that is something that we do. That's like I would say the number one syncing issue that we seem to find. Someone says, my vault isn't syncing, it has plenty of space. And it turns out the computer has like 50 gigabytes left. So in order to resolve that, there's a couple different things that you can do. There's a minimum free space setting. You can open up the window here at the device settings, and you can see the automatically managed value, and it can be disabled or adjusted. The absolute minimum you could set is 1 gigabyte. So if your device has less than a gigabyte, you may have to pursue other methods of trying to free up some space. That could be deleting things outside of the app. One option that Mylio does have is something called clearing the cache. So earlier in the sync panel, I said there was something called a squiggly line, which is just a form of green, meaning that it has it. But it means that the device sync policy doesn't actually want it. In this particular case where it says that there's a lot of previews on my computer, I actually just adjusted the sync policy to only want thumbnails, so it would be there. So all of the previews that it did have, it no longer wants. And we have this clear cache option. So we can run that to try and free up some space. If you have originals cached, that could be even more space. So then if the device isn't low on storage, another question that we see often is, I have an image that it's blurry or there's blank squares. There's quite a few different scenarios but most of the time it means that the files just aren't synced yet. Actually, I believe when I just did the search, the show media waiting to sync to my USB drive, I was given 4 media that are all blank gray squares. Just to kind of, what I see in the sync panel is a lot of orange, meaning devices want it. And then there is one marked as green that does have it. So that's the device that I should bring online if I wanted to sync these images. So I just opened up Mylio on that phone, and that is going to begin syncing. So they do start filling in, and we'll get activity notifications, and we'll just we'll let that sync. Another reason that an image may be blurry is just that, in this case, only a thumbnail is there. When you go to view an image, it's going to appear grainy and blurry. And you can see in the sync panel, it says it only has a thumbnail. So a thumbnail will appear blurry when it's enlarged. Another thing that we may see is something called unsupported files. In the dashboard, if you go to devices, we have an unsupported files list here that you can click on to perform that search. You can see these files only have an original, and there's no thumbnail or no preview. Sometimes if the image has an embedded thumbnail, Mylio may be able to extract that, and you'll at least have a thumbnail, like a blurry version, and the full-size original. So for this particular file, it looks like it is one of my test files that is kind of intentionally an unsupported file. The full-size original is synced. If you were to actually ask for it, like show me on the external drive where this file is, it's right there. But Mylio just can't generate the thumbnail or preview for it. So that would be what an unsupported file is and why it's a blank square. You may also see that there's unprotected files. Unprotected files could also be some of the blank squares that you are seeing. So an unprotected file means that the full-size original has not synced to all of your Vault devices. So these are typically new photos that are not, just haven't synced yet. If you have any old Vaults that you no longer are using, those devices still want the full-size originals, even if you're not using them anymore. And Mylio will flag them as unprotected because they haven't synced to all of your Vaults. And another source of these unprotected files can be an old phone or tablet that just hasn't synced in a long time. So you can just unregister a device right from the sync panel. If you're asked for the password, it means you are in the clear. There's nothing on that device that is not synced to somewhere else. If you try and unregister a device that has files that are not synced to any other device, you will get a notification that says, are you really sure you want to do that? I think you should let this drive finish before you unregister it. So Mylio does have a failsafe in there. If you do choose to proceed, you will end up with something called lost originals. Because lost originals is also a very common question, or something that we will note because the count is given to us if you were to send us logs to the support team. So if you write in and say, I have a question, and we kind of look at your logs, and we may always note, hey, I noticed that you happen to have lost originals. So a lost original is a media where Mylio has a catalog entry saying this thing exists. It may have a thumbnail, may have a preview, but no devices have the full-size original. In this particular case, with this set of photos, we have a thumbnail, so we have an idea of what they are. I can see the device that took the photo, and I can also see the import source has been removed. So these are from a phone that was on the account, but I had unregistered to just clean up my total devices. And there were some photos that these full-size originals are no longer in Mylio. The only real way to resolve this is to just delete them. I have the photos still on that old phone. I can sign into Mylio again and set it up as a new device, and they will re-import. So these just kind of become this something that does have to be cleaned up, and they can just be deleted.
Now, if somebody doesn't have that phone that they can reassociate and pull those originals back in and re-import, can they go ahead and export a smart preview if they have it, or a thumbnail if they have it, if that's the only thing they have left of that photo?
You can export a preview. The thumbnails are a very low resolution, and when you try to export,
Got it.
We do let you do it, so you can export it to try and preserve that. You want to make sure that you include any of the metadata. As a note, when you do export, this process is creating a new file. It may have all of the metadata embedded in it, but if you were to look at it in the file system, it's going to show a created date as of the day that it's exported. But when you look at the metadata date, all that data will be interpreted as the date of the original file. The number one reason we see lost originals is based on phones or tablets. Something is imported, and then Mylio kind of syncs a little bit but didn't finish, and then the photo is deleted from the device. A lot of the times it's screenshots or blurry photos that you ended up clearing out later. Very rarely it's actually a photo you wanted to keep. So even if you were to run clear cache, Mylio won't delete it unless it is synced to somewhere else. So Mylio has all kinds of fail-safes to prevent lost originals from happening. But they are something that people write in and ask about because they do appear. So another common syncing issue that we will see involves like USB drives not showing up as connected. There's a couple different reasons that we've seen. Some people got a new computer and their USB drive was formatted in a way that the new computer doesn't read if they are switching from Mac to Windows or Windows to Mac. NTFS does not have write support on Mac OS, and the Apple formatting does not work on Windows. So a drive that may work on one computer may not work on the other unless it's exFAT formatted. Assuming that the drive does work in one computer, one thing that we have seen is with the upgrade to Mylio Photos 22 and involved a lot of new features and catalog changes. When you plug in the drive in the activity section, you may even see something that says like upgrading attached catalog, meaning the USB drive's catalog is being updated to whatever that new version is. And sometimes that upgrade process may hit a hiccup and the drive is not connecting because Mylio can't load the catalog. If you have written into support already, we may start recommending this as one of the steps, but it is also something that's available in the app right from the support menu. So if you click on that little question mark icon, you can choose to show support options on startup, which will quit the Mylio app. And then you can reload. So in this case, we're given an option to repair the catalog. And Mylio will list any detached devices here. So if the drive is not mounting, we would want to select that external drive and try to recover the catalog. So Mylio will sync a copy of the catalog from the computer to the drive, or if something's wrong with the computer, the option is there to sync the good catalog from the drive to the computer. It's something that is rare, but it is something that we do see, and I wanted to show you a tool that was available to maybe help you if you use USB drives. One of the last reasons that USB drives are not syncing or not showing as connected in the sync panel is related to permissions. Specifically on Mac OS, there's a removable volumes permission that they ask for. And we have seen a couple instances on OS upgrade has to re-enable the permission. So everything was working fine and they do a significant upgrade and this permission needs to be re-enabled. One of the other last reasons that we see syncing never completing is if a folder has accidentally gone missing. This can happen if you're working in the file system more than anything. Can happen even accidentally. So in this case, we have not Mylio pictures. And now it's gone missing. So when a folder is missing, Mylio may still be able to show you any of the thumbnails and the folder hierarchy that was there, but nothing will actually sync to this folder if you have it set up for full-size originals on your computer. I would say it's kind of an edge case, but it was something I just encountered in a remote. So we had done a lot of troubleshooting steps, and when we were in the remote, we discovered all these folders that were missing, and that is why Mylio was not syncing for that particular person. In this case, you can either just name the folder back and Mylio will just relink and say, hey, there it is, and it's no longer missing. There is also an option to relocate a missing folder and choose it, like if you actually did intentionally move it or rename it. I can show you that as well, because you may have intentionally moved or renamed a folder. So when it goes missing, you can right click and choose locate missing folder. The reconnect option will open a window and ask you to pick the new folder, whether it was the rename or if it was the move. You can actually choose a different location somewhere in your file system. There was another option. You don't know what happened to the folder. It should be there. You just want it back. You can choose sync from another device, and Mylio will recreate the folder structure and resync anything back to the folders from one of your other devices, like a USB drive or any of your devices. It'll be able to recover the folder structure from. If you are in any of these situations where syncing still is not working, and you need to give things a nudge, there's quite a few options available. One of the ones that seems to work really well is to just apply an edit to a photo. This can be even just, oh no, because that folder's missing. Have to have a preview. Even if you were to apply any of these presets, got it. You always have the option to either reset the edit if you didn't want it, or if there was something there that you did want to keep, you can always press Control Z or Command Z, or edit, undo, and go back to where it was. This is a good trick because it forces Mylio to generate a new thumbnail and preview for a media, because it has to apply all of the edits. Applying a rotation would also be considered an edit that would force a preview or thumbnail generation that can be undone as well. Once you've done that, does it start syncing out to other devices? And if you have a lot to sync across a lot of devices, if you have a NAS, if you take it offline to let everything else catch up and then just sync the NAS, there does seem to be some performance benefits to running it in that order. If you've reached this point, you may see something that says like stuck moving folders or files, or stuck moving folders on disk, stuck moving files on disk right here in the activity window. And it kind of just runs over and over and over again. That is something that may require you to use the Mylio console and run some commands to try and find. The console is available in the help menu, right where the support options were. So it is available. It's not hidden. So you can find resources for using the console. The Mylio support site has specifically the steps for anything that may be stuck moving. You would run the set of commands called orphans. But we do also have other resources like the Mylio forum and of course the community. In the forum, there are Mylio developers. Like here's one from one of our developers, Dion, directly engaging with everyone. And he's done a pretty good job of answering people or giving them a console command to help them figure out what they need. So we do have resources available if things do seem to still be stuck and you just have some questions. You can reach out to us within the app from that same help menu, contact Mylio support, and you can tell us what you have questions about, or you can ask the community or check what other resources we already have published.
Excellent.
So because of the nature of, I guess, the topic, I figured this one was going to be a lot of questions more than anything.
You covered a lot of information and some really great tips of how to solve problems in the app. Does anybody have questions for Matthew? You can go ahead and put them into the chat, or you can unmute your mic and ask your questions. We've got a direct line to our team here.
I've got a comment. I ran into a lot of this early on with Mylio because I was taking my camera card, dumping it into my telephone, and then using the telephone to get into Mylio. And when I did a lot of them, I thought that I was done on my phone, was not checking the sync panel, and then I delete them from photos. Now they're still in the deleted thing, but I don't use photos for anything other than transferring photos. So my photo album is always empty on my phone. And it took me a while to figure it out. And actually how I did it again was the console, but I was writing my own queries in the console to figure out what was going on inside Mylio. I cheated, but I didn't have to pester support. But yeah, deleting things off your phone before Mylio is done is a real problem. You learn to spend a lot of time in the sync panel. In fact, on my computer, I leave the sync panel open all the time. Unless I specifically need details or info, I just leave the sync panel there so I don't keep doing that mistake, because I've been on Mylio a while now and I've done it recently. I mean, it's not like I learned very quickly. I really have to watch it.
Yeah, it is the number one reason we see a lost original was removed from the phone before it had the chance to sync somewhere else. Most of the time it is intentionally deleted photos, but it can sometimes be photos that you thought were synced somewhere else.
It just makes you feel unbelievably stupid when you delete them on purpose. Luckily, I never empty out my trash.
Make those mistakes.
Yeah, the recently deleted folder will hold stuff for 30 days. So.
Yes. Yeah, so I never delete that. That was my only recovery mode.
Now, a cool little mobile trick that you guys probably already know, but if you accidentally delete something, whether it's from your email or I think it works in photos as well, to do an undo on an iOS device, if you shake it. it'll pop up with an undo menu.
Oh, I didn't know that. And I've been on iOS for years and years and years now. I had no idea. That's
Yep.
cool.
So sometimes I'm just like flicking through deleting emails or something, and I go, oh, shoot, I didn't want to delete that one. I'm sitting there shaking my phone and it pops and says undo. And it's like, yes.
Very cool. That's good to know.
So if you catch it right away and you accidentally delete something, it doesn't work in all apps, but in the iOS apps works pretty well.
If it is a setting that can be enabled or disabled. I believe it is enabled by default, but if for some reason yours isn't working, it is under accessibility and then touch.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions, Ian or Kirk?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. That was really helpful, Matthew. And to be honest, I'd never looked at the sync panel before, so I'll certainly be able to make use of it now. I must say, I'm not aware of having much difficulty with syncing, but except that I do seem to have huge numbers of duplicates, and I know that's not really the topic of this session, but I've read the instructions repeatedly, and when I run the deduping facility, it tells me I'm doing really well and I haven't got any duplicates, but I can see hundreds of them. So maybe I need to put in a support request separately and see if I can do something about it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Go ahead, Matthew.
I was going to say the Mylio deduplication tool does only find exact duplicates. So if there's something even slightly different between the files, they will not be shown in the duplicate tool.
I understand that. I did actually look carefully at those qualifications, and I seem to have lots of files that are absolutely identical. Even in the folder, they seem to have the same file name. Or at least in two subfolders within a higher level folder, identical file names. And
if that's what you're seeing, then yeah, absolutely, you can reach out to the support team and we can try and investigate for you and kind of see if it is something that Mylio is missing, or try and get a better understanding of why they're not appearing as duplicates for you.
Yes, or maybe for some reason there's just one little minute change to the picture or something has happened. I don't know, but thank you for that anyway. I'll pursue that through the proper channels. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
And an interesting thing, a couple of weeks ago, I have 3 external hard drives attached to my Mac Mini. Mm-hmm. And so they're vaults. And at one point, I was trying to find pictures, and it may have been something different that led me into this, but I displayed 3 windows of Finder, one for each of the vaults. And I showed and navigated down, and it showed me on 2 of the vaults, under one particular folder, I saw a bunch of the pictures that should have been there. And on the 3rd vault, I could see the folder, but there were no pictures listed there whatsoever. And I said, well, maybe that's a sync issue and it needs to resolve itself. But it stayed that way for a week or more and just left me totally not only curious, but a little flustered that it didn't seem to be catching up with itself. And so I kind of came to a halt as far as bringing in more pictures and things like that. And then one day, there's nothing I know particular, but all of a sudden that 3rd vault, it showed all the files that, to me, looking at it through Finder, were missing. And it was just a mystery that I have no particular clues or cues as to what resolved it. It was just very strange to see. So I don't know if that's something that occasionally comes and goes or not.
Is that something you've encountered before, Matthew?
That is not something I've encountered, unless it was a recently added USB drive. Then so whatever you see in Mylio's folder view is directly translated to what you see in Finder or File Explorer. On the USB drives, when they're set up as vaults, they will also have all of the full-size originals contained within each of the folders. So if the drive was even partially synced, it would still have all of the file hierarchy, and some of the folders should have had content. But if the folder itself was like whatever on USB drives, Mylio makes like a Mylio underscore or ABC123 folder, whatever that external directory is. Like if that was blank, that would only happen on a new device that hasn't synced anything yet.
These were all three of the vaults are external hard drives. They're not USBs, and they've been plugged in and just hanging around for a while. And it was just a particular folder that something had made me go look at, trying to figure it out. I think there was maybe related, unrelated, but I had gone somewhere and tried to open a folder in Mylio, double clicking on it to show pictures, which it also had some subfolders under it. So I expected to see a view come up showing subfolders and then, a little grid of all the pictures. And it went directly to just showing all the pictures. I could never see the subfolders under it. So I don't know if that's kind of hooked in there or not, but something led me into this situation where I looked up the folder actually on Finder on those three vaults, and the three vaults did not show the exact same thing. One folder was just blank, but then it eventually caught up, like a week and a half or 2 weeks later. Something happened that just kind of kicked it, nudged it, right? So I don't have an answer. It was just a very odd occurrence that kind of made me pause in my enthusiasm in getting used to this.
Hey, Kirk, I'm not any part of Mylio. I'm a user like the other two of us, but I am a pretty experienced Mac user. And this last weekend, I did a backup of one of my servers. I've got a number of web servers, and I did a backup to my Mac, and I used a program called rsync, which is a really old established Linux utility, and I trust it implicitly. And when I went and looked at Finder, not all the files showed there. And I came back yesterday and I looked again, and they were all there, and rsync wasn't running anymore. So I think in the last couple releases of OS 10, there's some kind of a caching issue with Finder. And I missed an important piece here. I have an alternate file browser on my Mac for dual column browsing called Pathfinder. Pathfinder did show them, Finder did not. So I don't think this is a Mylio issue. I think this is something unrelated.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it kind of threw me for a loop. And when you brought up this issue, I thought, yeah, it's sounding familiar. One thing is if you are running a lot of drives, you might want to look at Pathfinder, and it's got a free trial for, I think, a month, if I remember right. It's by a company called Coco Tech. And it'll allow you to look at multiple folders at the same time with copy, move, and things like that. Don't mess with your Mylio folders that way, but you can look at them that way.
All right. Are there any other questions before we wrap up for the day? All right. Well, I want to thank Matthew for being here with us today. Some fantastic information, and we'll have this recorded as well. So if you want to go back and watch it, and for anybody who missed today's session and they missed out, because this is good stuff, that will be posted to the community here within the next couple of days. And let's see, next week, we're going to be talking about traveling with Mylio. So that'll be a good one. And then the following week, we're going to be talking about the community. And so some of the ways you can get the best, get the most out of our community, and how to share photos and share your knowledge with other users, and how to have fun there. So it's a great place. So I hope you guys will join us for those. And thank you guys for joining us today. And thanks again, Matthew. And we'll hopefully see you next time.